And Stormy Daniels on the stand. They're going over this back and forth between Trump's lawyers and Stormy Daniels, and they're trying to discern whether or not she wanted to get paid or whether or not she wanted to talk about it or have a press conference or keep her mouth shut. So this is kind of like a bit of a ping pong ball right now, going back and forth. Doesn't seem to be landing a lot of things at the moment, but it's early.
Yes, it is early, but we are moving right along, and we have a great legal panel. We want to bring them back. Jonathan Turley, Andrew McCarthy, Kerri Urbahn, and joining our coverage, former U.S. Attorney and former counsel to the Senate Judiciary Committee, Brett Tolman. Jonathan Turley, could you kick us off here in this second hour as we understand that the cross-examination is underway and Stormy Daniels might seem a little defensive?
Well, she has every reason to be defensive because much of what she has said in the past has been contradicted. And they're bringing out this settlement agreement that she reached with them. Daniels was doing what many people view as a conventional form of celebrity extortion. That is, she wanted to cash in on her story. But what's interesting is that Donald Trump was trying to kill false stories as well as stories that were allegedly true. You know, there was a story involving a doorman who said that he had an illegitimate child. They wanted to kill that too. That's not strange for celebrities. It's not strange for politicians. Indeed, many members of Congress have engaged in NDAs throughout the years. So this is a standard part of politics and entertainment. Now, what they're showing the jury now is that she had this economic motive all along, but also her credibility is in tatters. The real question here is going to be how more sort of narrow the scope of the testimony will be. It's obviously going to be narrower because this is a cross-examination when it comes to Trump. But they have a lot of material involving her own conduct, her own life. And you may see the prosecutors start to object as to the scope of those questions. Okay.
Andy, do you think at the moment that Stormy Daniels is done after today? Or do you have any sense of that right now?
Without being in the courtroom and listening to the strain of testimony, that's a hard call to make. Nothing moves as fast in this trial, except for jury selection, as we thought it would be. But just piggybacking on what Jonathan said, I've been thinking a lot. What I think you would be thinking a lot about as a lawyer in this case is your strategy with respect to whether Trump is going to testify or not. One of the reasons I thought that they should come in with guns a-blazing today to marshal a good mistrial motion, especially after they had a day off to pull it together, is I think one of the outrageous things about allowing this testimony is it really makes it very difficult for Trump to testify in this case. Because now, by virtue of the way that the prosecution has gone about this, Stormy's story about what happened in 2006, which shouldn't be in the case at all, is front and center in the case. And Trump, who shouldn't have to testify about that, will obviously have to testify about it if he takes the stand, because it wouldn't make any sense to the jury if he didn't. I think that's one of the worst things about letting her testify this way. But as far as trial strategy is concerned, I think if I want to put Trump on the stand, I want her off the stand as fast as I can, and I want to make it as narrow as I can. If I've decided I'm not putting Trump on the stand, or he's decided not to testify, then I think my lawyers have a lot more leeway to go guns a-blazing after her.
Excellent points, Andy. Really makes you think about what the strategy could be long term. Okay, want to bring back in Kerri?
Well, yeah, Kerri, two questions for you. One is on Stormy Daniels. Do we have any idea or more of an indication as to how the jury is reacting to her testimony?
I started off the day on Tuesday. I was there in the overflow room thinking, okay, this is a bad morning for Donald Trump with respect to the jury, not because she was describing anything illegal, but the level of salacious detail she was providing would cloud anyone's judgment. But by the afternoon, her disposition, her demeanor, it changed so remarkably when she was under cross-examination. She went from this kind of accessible person you'd be hanging out with at a coffee shop, hearing a little bit of an off-color story about a past relationship, to a very hostile, defiant witness who was talking pretty proudly about defying a court order. She was all over the map as far as what she was in this for. And, you know, just now we're getting notes from our producers in the courtroom, and they're talking about how her lawyer said to Michael Cohen that Stormy Daniels really, really wanted this money. And again, I go back to this silly idea that she wasn't in it for that. And I say this as someone who was the former press secretary for the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation efforts. And we all remember how that story broke. It's because Christine Blasey Ford gave it to the Washington Post. Anyone can do that. So this idea that Stormy Daniels was just out there because she felt like she had some moral obligation to get it out post the Access Hollywood story is ridiculous, because she turned around and sold her silence for $130,000 and then was enraged when she wasn't given it.
Right.
Yeah. You know, Kerri, on that point, they're actually getting to the heart of the matter right now inside this courtroom, because Trump's attorney is asking Daniels about the $130,000. And based on the emails we're getting from our reporters and producers in the courtroom there, Daniels says that she didn't get $130,000. It was a payment. She got a portion of it. In return for the $130,000 payment, she signed the NDA. Wow. We have finally reached the moment that this is likely all about. Then there's a lot of more detail here. I don't want to read all the way through it here. I want to get some comment from Brett Tolman. And I'll read through this and then we'll summarize. Brett, where are you right now in this trial? It's been some time since we've had a chance to ask you. Go for it.
Well, the most remarkable thing is there's not a courtroom, Bill, in this country where a trial judge would have tolerated. They have zero patience for these kinds of salacious details when they really have no relevance to the underlying case that has to be proven. But here, that's an exception, right? Because they want to have that come out. The judge is just as interested, you can see. And so a lot of leeway was given. Now what you're going to see now is the defense team is going to adapt a strategy that is very common on cross-examination, and that is the strategy to get the witness unsettled, get them defensive, and then go in for the kill on some of the more important details of the transaction that's at hand. I fully expect them to do that. I don't think they will take they won't take their foot off the gas in this instance. I don't think they've made a decision on whether Donald Trump is going to testify at this point, but they are going to absolutely attempt to bury Stormy Daniels in this case.
Okay, I just want to conclude what our producers are telling us on this long email here. The statement says, the NDA, that all rumors about a relationship with Trump and hush money are false. Daniels says that she did not write it. It was given to her and she was told to sign it. Therefore, she did. And so then you get to the payment portion with Michael Cohen that I imagine maybe comes tomorrow or even next week. I don't know who you call next. You go from Stormy Daniels to Michael Cohen. I'm sure the lawyers here have a lot of opinions on that. But remember what Jeffrey McConney said last week. He's the controller of the Trump Organization, worked for the company for 36 years. He was the one responsible for putting in the company ledger what payment went to whom and why. And he was the one that had the legal payments put into the record. And he said, quote, there are a number of accounts you can post it to. We were paying a lawyer, Michael Cohen, so I said to put it posted to legal expenses in the general ledger. Jonathan, I imagine we may come back to that point very soon.
No, I think so. I mean, the funny thing is that point happens to be the case, right? This is all about how these payments were denoted on business records. And many people still insist that this is perfectly accurate as a legal expense. If you remember, the Hillary campaign, first of all, lied about funding the Steele dossier, but they ultimately hid it by listing it as a legal expense. Now, they were fined for that by the FEC. But they litigated that and insisted, no, that was a legal expense that was paid through Mark Elias. So this is not a new type of argument. This was an NDA that was handled by Cohen. The payment was part of a larger payment to Cohen. Now, it's not clear what the prosecutors are saying. I mean, should they have denoted that as avoidance costs or personal payment to avoid scandal? It's all incredibly vague. But that is the issue in this case. And what's also fascinating is that you have Stormy Daniels saying, well, sure, I signed a sworn statement that there was no affair, but I really didn't read it. I mean, once again, you're sort of left there with your jaw open as to, well, why should we believe you now? You say you were coached by the prosecutors. Do you believe what you're saying now?
Kerri, I want to play for you something else. You mentioned your work as a communications expert as well, and you did such a great job at Department of Justice. President Trump started off his comments today talking about the other news that is happening, which was President Biden's flip-flop and reversal on support for Israel in terms of some weapons. Listen to him here and get your take on the other side.
What Biden is doing with respect to Israel is disgraceful. If any Jewish person voted for Joe Biden, they should be ashamed of themselves. He's totally abandoned Israel, and nobody can believe it. I guess he feels good about it because he did it as a political decision. You have to do the right decision, not the political decision.
So this is the news of the day, and if this were a normal campaign where you didn't have one of the candidates in court every day, you could imagine that President Trump would be driving forward on that issue. But because he's in court, he has to rely on surrogates. We had Governor Doug Burgum on arguing the case that he thinks that this is wrong. But what do you think of the president's use of his time here on talking about news of the day?
Great way to start the day. And to your point, he would be able to, go wall to wall on this today, given the fact that our president effectively announced us abandoning our strongest ally in the Middle East. That would be a very big day normally in a political campaign. So I thought it was very smart that Donald Trump started off the day talking about that. And he's done that, I think, pretty consistently, or at least he started to last week, going through today. And then he goes into his case. And I also think it's smart when he actually reads straight from the articles themselves. It's a way to dance around the gag order while also saying, look, it's not just me. Here are the people who are saying this, including news organizations that normally don't support me.
All right, Kerri, thank you so much. We have lots more coming. The cross-examination is underway. We're getting great detail from our producers inside the courtroom. We're going to gather more of that. We'll take a quick break and be right back.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.